All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to week 8, everybody. The weeks are winding down here. We only have this week and then 2 more weeks left, and then we are off to Christmas break. So just a few things to finish up. Hopefully the rest of the semester will go smoothly. I think it shouldn't be too bad from here on out, but I guess that will be up for you to decide. This week we are going to finish up our module on Enscape, and we're going to be mainly focused on the requirements for Lab 3. So I'm going to go down here to week 8, and I'm just going to walk you through everything that I kind of touched on in my email that I sent out earlier today. So first of all, most of this stuff that's in here is just resources for you to reference as you're going through this. So it's not all stuff that you necessarily have to watch. I know it looks like a lot of stuff in here, but the first thing is basically just,
thousands of Black Friday.
This is just a YouTube video that kind of goes over the seamless textures that I mentioned a couple weeks ago in our past lecture. So if you're pulling content from a manufacturer's website, that is going to help you edit those images and make them look a lot better and seamless, because usually the stuff that you're pulling from the websites are not that great. So very often you're going to have to modify them in order to get them looking in an acceptable state for a rendering. So that'll help you with that. The second video that I have is a webinar. It's about a little over an hour, I think, and mainly that is just a resource for you to reference as you go through and work on Lab 3 and also your studio stuff, your studio renderings. Okay, so make sure that you're just referencing that to help you with any of the loose ends that may not have been tied together as we've gone through this. And there's also a lot of really good tips and tricks in there too. So that should be a good reference kind of as you go through it. And I encourage you to watch it. The third one is going to be an Enscape article that goes over panoramas. So lab number 3 that we're going to be working on here, we're basically going to be creating a panorama tour, which if you've used Google Street View before, it's very, very similar to that, where you're going to have a 360 panorama, or several of them in this case, and you'll basically be stitching them together, and then we can teleport between the different areas of the panorama. So it's kind of like a very dynamic way of presenting your project, because you get the sense that you're actually walking through the full model kind of in virtual reality. But the nice thing about it is you don't have to require on the intense computer hardware in order to show that off to somebody. So if you had a client, for example, and you wanted them to kind of get a really good taste of the design, you could convey that to them by creating one of these tours and sending it off as just a URL, and then they could open it on their computer and they could kind of move throughout the entire building, as opposed to just looking at static 2D renderings. Okay, so we're going to kind of push beyond the typical status quo of just making 2D renderings and putting them on a board and making something that's a little bit more immersive. So this article right here kind of guides you through everything that you really need to worry about when it comes to setting these up in Enscape, especially this video right here, which I'm also going to be covering this tonight in this lecture very briefly, and the other video that I have posted to this week's content is going to cover it as well. So you should be very clear on how to set up these panoramic tours and how to render out the panoramas. But yeah, just reference this article. if you want to get a really good understanding of everything that you can do with the panoramas. Something that is really cool about these panoramas with Enscape, let me see if I can find it. What you can do is you can basically tie the panoramas to a QR code, and then you can take that QR code and, for example, if you had like a presentation board or something for your studio project, you could put that QR code on your presentation board, like maybe down the corner or something, and anybody who's walking past looking at your design can take their phone and just point it at that QR code and pull up the full immersive 3D tour right there on their device, and they could actually, pan around and look at the entire building and your design, which is really, really cool. So, any way that you could add sort of kind of more advanced technical thing into your project, the better. So that's kind of the goal. But this is going to walk you through all that. There's a good example of what I'm talking about, how they just scanned it, and then you just hold up your phone and literally you can move your phone and the gyroscope in there will move as if you're actually standing inside the building, giving them kind of a faux VR experience, which is pretty neat. But yeah, that's kind of where we're heading with this lab assignment. Okay, so then the next thing that we got going here, let's see. RoundMe. So RoundMe is a platform that we're going to be using for this lab assignment that's going to allow us to actually create these virtual tours. Okay, so it's a free platform. You just go on here and you make an account, and then you can set up all the tours that you want. So I'll hop back to this in a minute. This next one, so this is an actual pre-recorded lecture that I'm going to want you to watch. Now, this was pulled from last year when I taught this course, and when I did the course last year, things were in a little bit different of an order. So basically, the order that we went for the modules was module 1 was the Revit families. Then module 2 was SketchUp. Module 3 was this. Okay, so this was in the same order with the Enscape and stuff. And then module 4 was CD sets. So basically, when I did it last year, I based all of the Enscape content off of modeling something in SketchUp, since we basically swapped Revit and SketchUp, okay? So some of the stuff in this video is geared a little bit more towards SketchUp, and you'll hear me like referencing SketchUp and stuff, but it's pretty much one-to-one the same in terms of like using Enscape for SketchUp versus using it for Revit, so I just kind of left it in. But in this video, I kind of cover a lot of the stuff that I covered in the live lecture from last week, where we went into Photoshop and took our renderings that we exported out and we did some post-processing to them. So that's all in there up until 4230 in the video. Everything beyond the 4230 mark is going to be an explanation of Lab 3. So it's going to cover all like the VR stuff and setting up your panoramas and rendering them out, uploading them to RoundMe, and kind of setting up the virtual tour, which I'm going to cover again tonight. But just to be clear, that is another place that you can go to reference how you set all that up. Okay. So then the other couple things that are in here, I have examples of some of the virtual tours that I have done, which you can reference when you're making yours. So I have 3 that I've done on RoundMe, and then I have another one that I did here on another platform called Cloud Piano. So basically, this is a really good example of what we're going to be doing. Not this complex, but this is one that I did for a home builder, and he basically had me model the entire first floor of this house in SketchUp, and then I took it using Enscape, and I rendered out all the panoramas, and brought it in here to Cloud Pano. And basically what you get is a series of points that you can teleport around to within the model. So it's basically just a bunch of photographs stitched together, but it really makes you feel like you're, exploring an actual 3D model of a space, right? So you basically tie a bunch of these points together, and in some cases, I'll show you on RoundMe, you can also add little information bubbles to specific like products and stuff within the space, and call them out. But yeah, this is basically what we're going to be doing, and for our purposes, we're only going to be doing 3 points as a minimum requirement. So in this one, I have like maybe 12, but we're not going to get that crazy at all. We're going to have like 3 of them. But yeah, that's kind of the general idea. So there's that one. And then the other ones, the nice thing about RoundMe is you can actually embed these tours on other websites, which is what I like about it. So, I can just click on the tours here and stay within Canvas and actually see what they look like without ever leaving this page, which is really cool. So this is kind of what I was talking about with the information bubbles. On here, let's say I wanted to call out a specific design feature. So this pendant light, for example, if I wanted to see what that is, I could tie an information bubble to it. And it's going to, when I click on it, tell me the manufacturer, tell me the name of the actual light fixture, and provide me a product shot so that I can see what that actually looks like in real life. But then you can do things like call out paint colors with swatches, call out, you don't necessarily have to put a picture with it. You could just say the type of tile that this is, call out different finishes. But yeah, it's basically the same sort of thing, which is really cool. And also another really nice thing about setting up these virtual tours is they're a great portfolio piece. So as you're moving along and you're trying to eventually land an internship or a job, you're going to want to have some kind of a portfolio put together for your potential employer to look at, so that they can be impressed and hire you. Well, nowadays portfolios are moving more and more toward being entirely digital. So a very common thing that you'll see is people will set up like their own website. So you could create a custom website like on Wix or something, or Squarespace, and you could set up your own portfolio on there and then take these virtual tours of your different design projects, and you could embed them all, sort of like I'm doing here, on your own website within your portfolio. And then anybody clicking through can just go and hit play, and they could walk around through all your projects, and that would give them a really good idea of your capabilities, essentially. So that's really the idea. I want you guys to be embracing some of these newer technologies and trends, and really understanding all the options that you have available out there for you, and kind of go beyond the status quo of just doing static 2D renderings and printing out a PDF and handing it to somebody, right? We want to move more into immersive experiences that make you appear to be more valuable within the job market, essentially. So that's really the goal of this assignment. All right, let's see what else we got. It should be about it, other than the actual assignment and the quiz. So the actual assignment, if you were to click on that, that's going to have all of your instructions for what's required, right? So click on it, and then this is going to kind of explain it to you. So basically, what I'm going to have you do is take your studio project, and you're going to be choosing 3 locations, at a minimum 3. If you want to do more for the purpose of your final presentation for studio, and actually use this, which I encourage you to do as a presentation tool for your studio assignment, right? That would be great. Um, you can do more than that if you want. And if you do add additional ones, there will be some extra credit incentive as well. So, what you want to do is, at a minimum, you want to choose 3 locations in your studio project, and hopefully it's like the most impactful areas of your project that have important design features that you want to show off. But you want to render those out as panoramas with Enscape, and then we're going to link them all together using RoundMe. Okay. Here I had said a similar platform, but really I think RoundMe is going to be the best bet. It's going to be the seamless and easiest for us to use. It's a very, very good platform, so I would just stick with that if I were you. I will accept ones done on other platforms if you want to try them, but in my experience, I have used RoundMe, and it's by far just been like the easiest to pick up. It's very intuitive. It does exactly what you want. You can embed it everywhere. So I would say please just stick with RoundMe for the assignment. And then you're going to render those out. You're going to link them together. We're going to make the tour. And then you also have to make sure that all of your renderings are fully rendered, meaning all of like the architectural elements, all the 3D models and stuff that you have within your model, they have to be fully textured with all the final materials and stuff. So I don't really want to be seeing just plain generic white objects with no materials applied. You want to make sure that it's at a finished state and that everything has its proper materials and it's done, ready to present. So treat this as if you're putting together your final renderings for your studio project, okay? It should be to that level. You also must include entourage that you're pulling in from the Enscape asset library. So, it could be people from the library, it could be furniture, whatever, decorations. Just make sure that you're showing some entourage that you've obviously pulled from there, because it's kind of the purpose of Enscape. They have really good assets that help you make your images look really good quickly, and you want to be taking advantage of it and actually using them so that your spaces look more alive, right? So make sure that you're pulling Enscape assets. Make sure you're using high quality materials. That's why I posted that link to that Photoshop video. I don't want to be seeing ugly materials that are obviously tiling and look horrible, right? I want you to, kind of go beyond that and make it actually look like a really, really nicely rendered, realistic space. If you have materials that are really obviously tiling and are not seamless, it really breaks the sense of immersion and kind of kills the image. So you want to make sure that you're using good high quality materials, and also tap into some of those resources that I posted at the beginning of the module, places that have really high quality pre-made rendering maps that you can download and put into your project. That's going to make them look so much better. So make sure you're taking advantage of all those resources that I posted so that your renderings can look as good as possible. All right. Let's see what else. Oh, another thing, I'm going to talk about this in a minute when we get to RoundMe. You want to make sure that you are publishing your virtual tours, right? So basically, you can create the tour on the platform, but when you're done creating it, you have to click a special button that says publish, or else I will not be able to see it. So I'll show that to you, but make sure you're conscious of that so that you're not submitting it to me and then I'm not able to view it, because that's something I ran into a lot last year. Students would just turn it in and then I'd have to email them and say, hey, can you open up your tour and publish it? Because I'm trying to grade it and I can't even access it. So you want to make sure that you're conscious of that and setting it to be published. So as far as the extra credit goes, I'm going to offer you up to 5 extra credit points as long as you do one of the following. So I want you to either create a rendered floor plan or section or elevation, whatever, like we did last week, a really nice, finished looking one that you would be proud enough to put on your presentation board. And it can be orthographic or it can have perspective, like the section perspective I showed you how to make last week. You can either do one of those, or you can add an additional panorama to your 3D tour beyond the minimum 3 that I'm asking you to put in. The only catch is if you put these in, or if you put it in, I'm going to require that you include a minimum of 3 of those information bubbles that I showed you, where you can hover over maybe a finish or something that's being called out, and have it tell you what that product or finish is. You want 3 of those, which they're very easy to make. And I want you, if you put those, to actually have a swatch or an image tied to the actual product. So like I showed you with that pendant light, how when I hovered over it, it brought up an image of the actual product from Restoration Hardware. You want to make a fully detailed information bubble. So at least 3 of them. Okay, so one or the other. Create another rendered drawing, submit it to me, or add another panorama to your space and make sure that that additional panorama has, these minimum requirements of the information bubbles, and you can get an extra 5 points of extra credit. Okay? So down here I also have a video for the submission instructions, because there's a specific way that I want you to turn this in, which I'll just run through it again now. It's in the video, but basically when you click New Attempt to submit your assignment, when you go to your 3D tour that you've created, first of all, this is your kind of like main tours page on RoundMe. On your individual tour, you want to come down here to the settings and go to tour settings, and then you want to make sure that it's set to published, like I said, or else I will not be able to see it. So right there, turn on published, click save, and then open your tour. And then up here in the top right, you have these 3 dots. You want to go down here to share and embed, and you want to copy this code right here. So select it all, right click, copy it, and then let's go back to the submission box. In the submission box, all you're going to be putting is you're gonna hit this little cloud that says embed, and you're going to paste that code in and then click submit, and you should see your RoundMe tour pop up. If it pops up and you can preview it and move around and everything exactly as you could on RoundMe, that's all you have to turn in to me. Okay, then you can click submit assignment. If you're also turning in a plan view or a section view, like an additional Enscape rendering, instead of doing an additional panorama, you can just upload the image below. So just add another line here to this entry, and then upload an image and just put it there, or upload it maybe even as a file. So upload document, that might work out a little bit better. One of the two, just make sure that it's in there and I can see it, and that both just come up right next to each other, so that's easy for me as I'm going through and grading those. So that's basically the requirements for the lab assignment. Okay, the last thing is going to be the quiz, which I don't really need to explain too much. The quiz is just going to pull from everything that we have talked about the last 3 weeks with Enscape. Really not that complicated as long as you've been paying attention to the lecture videos and stuff like that. 10 questions, 30 minutes to do it, and both the Lab 3 and Quiz 3 are going to be due December 4th. So you have a couple of weeks to work on both of them. All right, and these shouldn't really, hopefully, take you too long to get through, since you'll already be doing most of the work for Studio anyway, right? So yeah, that's kind of it for Lab 3. Now, I'm going to hop over to Revit, and I'm going to explain the panorama side of Enscape a little bit inside there. So if there's any questions, you can ask now, would be a good time. But otherwise, I'm going to pull up Enscape. Okay, so within Enscape, all we're really worried about when it comes to rendering these panoramas is choosing the location that you want to take the panorama. So let's go ahead into our little house here. And let's say I am happy with somewhere like this in the living room. So what you want to do is navigate to the spot where you want to take this panorama, and you could even save this as a custom view. So if I go to view management, you could go here and create a view. But before you do that, if you're flying around in the viewport, you always want to hit the space bar to ground yourself at a standing height. So right now, I'm just using my number pad keys to move around. I'm set to a walk mode. Okay, so if I hold my middle mouse button and drag, I'm set to fly mode, and I can move anywhere I want in the model just by dragging my mouse button. But then once I want to be grounded on the floor below, I hit spacebar, and that drops me down to walk mode. And I can navigate through the model by holding the left mouse button down to pan left or right, and using my arrow keys to walk. And the camera will naturally just walk up any stairs or anything like that, and treat you like you're an actual person walking through the space. Okay, so make sure you're grounded. Choose the area where you want to take the panorama. So I'm going to go back here, and when you're ready, you can create a view, and we can call this let's see, panorama 1 maybe, and then we'll create that. And then we'll choose our other location. So let's say now I want to go over here to this corner. So I'm going to go to the corner, I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to just stand in the corner here, and let's say that's good. Create a new view. This is going to be panorama 2. Go ahead and click create. So now we have panorama 1 and we have panorama 2. Okay. Next thing you want to check is tweak any of your visual settings. So up here again, visual settings. Just tweak all these, get them to a place that looks good, that you like. So mess with the exposure maybe, and the light brightness and the sun brightness, all that stuff. Make sure that time of day looks good. If you hold down the shift key and then you hold right on your mouse and you drag left or right, so you should be able to see this on my recording. I'm holding shift, I'm holding right on my mouse, and I'm dragging left or right with my mouse. I can change time of day. So get all your settings kind of where you like them. And then also another key thing is you want to make sure that your camera is set to a regular perspective. I believe if you have it set to 2-point perspective or orthographic, it will mess up the panorama. So make sure you set it to perspective. Go back to my view. And once you have that set, you should be good. The only other thing to check is your panorama resolution under output, and then panorama at the bottom. Set that to be a high resolution unless your computer cannot handle it. Otherwise, set it to normal, but I would not recommend going to low because it's just going to look bad. So I always render out at high, and then we're going to have to bring these into Photoshop anyway after the fact and scale them down a little bit to get them working in round me. So start out at high, and then we can always make the quality down a little bit from there, but I always like to render out at the highest possible and then reduce quality down the line so that I don't have to re-render things. Okay, but if you render out at high and you run into some issues, you can drop it down to normal and see if that kind of fixes it. Okay, so I'm going to leave mine at high, and then all you have to do when you're ready to render is you come up here to this 360 button, and you just can click on that. Okay, you have two options: stereo, panorama, and mono. you want to stick with mono. Okay, so if you just hit this button, it'll start rendering it. I'm not going to render mine now because I already did it, and it takes a while. So once you hit it, it'll probably take 5 to 10 minutes, so you'll want to wait for it to render out. But once they are rendered out, what you will get is a couple renderings saved to a specific spot inside of Revit. These don't actually save out to a file initially. Okay, so I'll show you that. So let's say you just rendered them. You have to go over here to this button that says Upload Management. Okay, which doesn't seem very obvious, but that's where the panoramas save. Basically, what this does is it saves them within Revit, and then you have this option here, which looks like a little cloud, and if you click on that, actually in your case it might look like a little arrow. If you click on this button here in the corner though, it's going to let you upload this panorama to, let's see, do you want to remove the panorama from the cloud? No. Okay, so it's going to upload the panorama to Enscape's server, and basically what that does, if you click on this, that's where you get your little QR code that you can paste on your presentation board for somebody to scan with their phone. It'll take you, if you open it in a web browser, to a web page. So I'll let this load. And basically this web page is just the individual panorama that you rendered out. Okay. Like that, which is pretty cool. So if somebody scans it, they'll see this exact thing. The only thing about this is it's pretty limited, so I can't zoom in or out. All I can do is I can like look around, which is kind of why I wouldn't recommend sticking with Enscape for this. I would recommend using something like RoundMe because it's a lot more capable. But if you're in a pinch and you need to show something to a client or something, you can just render this out and send them this link in an email, and they can pull this up and kind of look around the space, which is a nice feature. There is a way to actually, and they cover this in the article. Sorry, let me pull it up one more time. They cover this in this article. You can use Enscape, their online platform, sort of as a way to create the virtual tours like RoundMe, where you can link multiple views together and jump around between them and stuff. The only issue, which I just found out right before class, is although it has that capability, you can't do that with a student license, which is really dumb. So everything it says in here about creating a panorama tour using Enscape, just kind of ignore that because we can't do that anyway because we're all on student licenses. So that's why we're going to use RoundMe instead. Okay, so going back here, once you've rendered them out and you have them showing up here, if we want to get these over into RoundMe, what we have to do is click this little button here, Save Panorama as File. So you just want to do that for both of them. I'm just going to save these to my desktop. I'll put them under my Enscape renderings, and we'll call this Pano 1, and then we'll call the other one Pano 2. Whoops, that didn't save to the folder. Pano 2. Give it a minute. Okay. Let's drop that there. Okay, so now you can open these up in Photoshop because we're going to need to change the size of these. So let me open up Photoshop. And while that's loading, oh, it already loaded, okay. Okay, let's go ahead and open that. Panel 1. And then the other one is Pano 2. File open. Pano 2. Okay. So now that they're in Photoshop, before you upload these, you can do any kind of photo editing that you want to them. So if you want to do any kind of adjustments and tweak colors, do anything like that, they'll show up a little bit skewed, obviously, because these are panorama files and not regular 2D perspectives. So they look a little bit funky. But you can go in here and you can add in any kind of adjustments that you want to. So, you know, for example, if I want to mess with the hue and saturation and just tweak different visual things about the image, you can edit them like any other photo, and it'll work just fine. So do any kind of tweaks that you want to them. And then what I'm concerned about, though, is this up here. So if I go to image and I go to image size, and I switch this over to pixels instead of inches, this is going to tell me how big the image is in terms of pixels. So 16,000 by 8100 is kind of where we're at. And it's a pretty big file. You can see that it's like 384 megabytes, I guess. So pretty big image file. And that's a little bit too big for RoundMe to accept by default. So the resolution is a little bit too high. So what we're going to do is go to RoundMe. And after you have your new account, basically it'll take you to this profile of yours, and you'll have nothing in here. You just want to come up here to create tour, and then you want to drag and drop your images here. So you can see it's telling me that the maximum file or maximum image size. So maximum panorama size 10,000 by 5,000 pixels, right? So what I want to do is basically go off of that bigger number here and drop this down so that I can get the maximum resolution out of what I rendered out of Enscape. Okay, so we're going to stick with this 10,000 number. So we'll go back to Photoshop and we'll go back to our image size settings, switch this back to pixels, and you want to make sure that your link right here is not broken. So right there it's broken. You want to make sure that these are linked together. That's basically your aspect ratio of your image, so width and height. When I knock this number down to 10,000, it will proportionally take the height value and knock it down to a matching value so that the aspect ratio is maintained. If I didn't do that, it would skew the image and it would look all wrong. So we're going to type 10,000 right here, like that. So now we have 10,000 by 5,000, which is perfect. That's exactly what RoundMe is looking for. Hit OK. Let it think for a second. And then this now should be an acceptable image to upload to RoundMe. So we're going to go to File, Export, and probably export this as a JPEG. So File, Export As, set the format to JPEG. It's a pretty big image file, so it might go a little bit slower. So this might also be a case, like I said, if your computer is going really slow, you can try rendering it out as a normal resolution and not the high resolution like I did, and it'll speed things up a little bit. So if you try high and you run into these problems and it's not working, you can go back and you can try it at normal resolution. It's just once you get it on RoundMe, the quality isn't going to be quite as crisp, okay? There we go. So we'll set that to JPEG, and then I'm just going to make sure that this is, I'm going to knock that all the way up to 7, make sure that's the highest quality. Let it think for a second. And we will again put this on our desktop under Enscape renderings, and this is, we'll call this Pano 2. round me. We'll save it. There we go. And then our other one, I think we can actually, I don't know that we necessarily have to go to image adjustments. I think we can actually just export these without changing it. So if I go to export, export as, I think I can make that modification here to 10,000 and it should work the same. So we'll set this, oh, whoops, I don't want to change canvas size. Export, export as, we'll set this here, 10,000. There we go, 10,000 by, whatever. That's weird. Let me do it here. I don't know why it's bumping that up to 10,001. Image size, 10,000 by 5,000. There we go. File, export, export as. Okay, cool. 10,000 by 5,000. High quality. And we will click export. And this one will be Pano 1 round me. Okay. And then now that these are done, pretty simple. We'll just go back to round me and we'll pull up our File Explorer. And we'll find our images. And we'll just drag and drop those onto our round me page, and then those will upload. Okay, then it's going to go ahead and it's going to start creating our new tour. Let it think for a minute. Okay, so we're going to enter our tour title. So I will call this my example. Let's call it 2022 Rep and Vis III example tour. And then you can give it a description if you want. So if you're publishing this for the purpose of a real presentation or maybe a portfolio, you could add any description you want about the project that might help the viewer to understand it a little bit better. So, you know, add in maybe just an example description. This is a tour I made for my interior design rep in Viz class. Something like that. Okay. And then you can set these however you want. It's kind of just up to you. These settings. These settings here are just for people who are browsing the site around me to find it. So if you want to add in that information, you can. If you want to leave it blank, you can. And then set this to published by default, just so that you don't have to worry about it later. So just check it on now so that you don't have to go back in and change it. So then we're going to hit save. And now what we can do is link these views together. So let's see here. Oh, I think it only uploaded one of my views. So we're going to have to upload another one too. So this is view 1. So I'm going to give this a name down here. So we'll call this living room corner. Okay, and I'm going to upload my other panorama. Let's see, Pano 2 round me. There we go. So it's adding my other view in. And basically, the way that you edit these is you come up here and you want to make sure that you're in the edit mode, which is this little pencil right here. Right now I'm in view mode because this little eyeball is showing, but if you're in edit mode, you can add things to the tour. So you can add a hotspot, which, their site is kind of acting up. You can add a hotspot by clicking on that little eye information icon and dropping it on any object within the panorama. So let's just maybe call out this chair. I don't know, Herman Miller chair, whatever it's called, and then you can add a description to it. I think, see if I can find what that chair is. So the egg chair. Arnie Jacobson. I'm not quite sure who the original manufacturer is. Fritz Hansen. There you go. So I'm going to pull this image for that. And this is what you're going to want to do for extra credit, right? If you want to get extra credit for this. So I could find this image and I can save the image as... we'll take a screenshot of the image because it's not going to save as a JPEG. So you can use your snipping tool. New. And we will take a little snip of this chair. And we'll save that. Again to the same spot. Okay, so we'll call this Fritz Hansen egg chair. And we can click that image icon and we can click on egg chair and it's going to add our nice product shot there for us, which is pretty cool. And then we'll hit create and that's going to create that for us. Perfect. Okay, so then the next thing, well, I was going to add my other view, but my other view disappeared. Why did that not upload? All right, let me try uploading that one more time. Maybe it's because I was making changes to things. Piano 2 round me. Upload that one more time. You can also add sound effects, I guess. I've never used them. I don't really know what the purpose is, but I guess maybe if like you had a water feature or something like that and you wanted to add in like a water sound that would play when your user teleports over next to the water feature, you could add in a sound effect to make it a little bit more immersive. So, you know, just little touches like that. It's kind of cool. Okay, so this is creating. So what we want to do, which is kind of how you link these together, this is the magic. Okay, so it made this now. I'm going to give this a title of, let's see, view from, or maybe, I'll just call this kitchen. Okay, so we have living room corner, we have kitchen. So what you do is you go into the view that you want, and you hover over the tile of the opposite view, and you click and drag up, and then you drop this in the spot where that other view was taken from. So I took it from that corner opposite over there. So I'm going to drop this in the corner, and now I can set a starting view direction here. So if I click custom view direction, I can set my starting view to be facing out into the living room instead of looking back into the corner. That's not what I want. I want to be looking out this way. So we're going to set that there, and then we're going to hit Save Portal. And it's going to think for a second. And now I have a portal that when I click on it, if I go back to my view mode now instead of edit mode, I can click on that and it's going to teleport me over to the corner, right? Now in this view, if I go back to edit mode, do the same thing. I click on kitchen and I hold and drag and I drop that over into the spot where I rendered out the kitchen panorama. Again, I set my custom view direction and I want to be looking, we'll look back toward the other view and we'll save that there. And now if I set that back to view mode, I have my kitchen portal and I can just teleport between the two. So in your case, you are going to have multiple of these, at least 3, and you're going to want to make sure that you can teleport between all 3 of them. Okay, so if I then had one out here by the pool, I would have this pool view down here and I would drag that to make a teleportation or a portal to the pool. And I want to also make sure that I do the same thing in this view. So I should be able to get to any other view from every view, basically. So from here I can get to the pool or I can get to the kitchen. From the kitchen I can get to the corner or I can get to the pool. And from the pool I can get to the kitchen or I can get to the corner. So make sure you create a portal for every single view in each view that you set up. Okay, and then if you want extra credit, you want to make sure that you create these information bubbles and you do a minimum of 3, okay? And you call out whatever product it is. It could be, like I said, a paint color, a flooring finish, a countertop finish, or it could be a piece of furniture, and then include a little image or swatch of whatever that is, and make sure that I can click on it and it will show up as expected. And if you wanted to jazz these up even a little bit more, you could also include URLs. So that is a handy thing for if this were a real client presentation, right? I want to get you in the mindset of you're practicing for something you'll be doing in reality. So if you can make these better, by all means, add in as much information as you can. I don't know why it's not letting me add the URL. So let's create a new one. I'm going to add the URL in to a different one. That's weird. So there's a URL button, but it's grayed out, and I don't know why. I guess we could paste the URL, maybe. Yeah, we'll paste the URL in and we'll call this egg chair. Great. And this one I'm going to delete. There you go. Put it on top of the chair. Save. And then I can click on the URL or copy it. Oh, there you go. So you have to paste the URL in and then click the URL button, and it's going to actually make it a URL that you can click on, I believe. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, if you can set these up nicely so you can go to the actual product, that would be a really good thing to do. Let's see what else. Is there anything in here that I'm missing? Let's go back to edit mode. I just want to make sure that I'm not overlooking any other things. Oh, you can actually also take snapshots from this. So if I were to, let's go to, oh wait, no. That's not what I think it is. So I think snapshot mode, let's see. I'm just gonna click that and see what it does. I believe all that does is update these thumbnails here. Yeah. What would be really cool is if you could actually render out the full image from here, but I don't believe you can. After you're done editing this, though, this is kind of all there is to it. You can click off of the edit mode, go to the little view mode, and then you can set this to full screen, and you can kind of view the whole thing, and then teleport between the two, either using the portals or the little thumbnails down here, which is nice. And then you can share or get that embed link right here. You can copy the clipboard and you can email the URL to the tour to somebody. Anything else? It has an auto rotation, which is kind of cool. So what this does is if you turn that on and you just leave your mouse and you don't touch anything, it'll just start rotating the panorama by default really slowly. So if you're putting this in your portfolio and you have a bunch of these, it'll just start, rotating and kind of showing the whole space without anybody even clicking on it, which is really neat. Don't know what auto follow does. Let's see what that does. Turn that off, turn that on. So auto follow, it looks like as you move your mouse, it'll just kind of move with your mouse. That's not too useful. I think slideshow, it'll just kind of rotate around the whole thing and then it'll automatically jump to the next view in the sequence. But yeah, there it goes. Like I said, maybe a good place to use this would be like your final presentation for your senior project, for example, that you'll be working on next year. If you have like a TV screen or something that you can set up next to your presentation board when they're going through that gallery, it's usually what they do is they have like a gallery space set up and your kind of boards are set up and you have a bunch of people walking by looking at everything, looking at everybody's projects and stuff. If you had a little TV screen or an iPad or something, you could just set that up and then just set this to slideshow and it's going to just rotate through every view and it's going to jump between all the views in the project, which is going to be really nice. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else in here that I really wanted to show you. There are these oh, that's kind of cool. There are these projection settings. So normal projection, basically when you look around, everything is going to look kind of visually accurate. The other projections will add just kind of distortion effects. So like fisheye, for example, kind of cool to play around with and see what they do. But architectural will turn this into a 2-point perspective. So it'll flatten out the verticals. So now as it rotates, all of your vertical lines are perfectly straight, which, for architectural interior design stuff tends to look a little bit better. So yeah, you can play around with them. I haven't looked at all these in a long time to see what all they do, but it's kind of interesting. Little planet. Oh man, that's very trippy. Yeah, but you can play around with them. But you don't need to mess with anything like that for this assignment. But yeah, just do what I did here. Set up your tour with at least 3 views. Do a 4th with the information bubbles for extra credit if you want. And that is basically it. And that's all I have to cover tonight. So make sure that you watch all the videos and look at all the resources that I posted to the folder, and let me know if you have any questions, and have a very happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you again next week. Yep, you too. Thanks.